My interest in ecology and climate change started with my grandmother. My story is probably quite unusual and has nothing to do with climate change or eco-awareness. But then what is a usual story in our world today? My grandmother Genia and her sister Sonia were the only two people of the entire family to survive during the Second World War. The rest of the family died in the Holocaust. The reason they survived was that their father managed to put them on the very last train leaving Ukraine when the Nazis' army was about to invade their town, and the two young women ended up in Kazakhstan. My grandmother and her sister were the lucky ones because my grandma was trained as an accountant. She actually worked as an accountant until her retirement. I remember sitting in her chair at her office in Slutsk and looking at what looked to me at the age of 5 as a huge counting dice called an abacus. I actually found just the same image on the internet, bring some nice memories from my childhood. And that was the most important counting device in an accountant's office before the calculator or computer, which is very hard to imagine now, even for me. So my grandma Genia was able to find a job which meant food and evacuation, very little food. She had to share her daily ration with her younger sister. So my grandma was always hungry and had to work very hard. Everyone worked very hard. Just a small piece of bread was luxury. I remember my grandmother sitting in her kitchen on a small chair and eating a piece of apple with a piece of white bread. Everything my grandma ate, she always ate it with a piece of bread. I found it a little bit funny as a child, but felt quite guilty when I grew up and realized why my grandma was eating everything, even an apple, with a piece of bread for the rest of her life. Since my adolescent age, and out of deep respect to my grandmother's memory, I developed a no-waste attitude towards food and appreciation of it. The raw resources, farmers' efforts, producers, drivers, sales assistants in shops, so many people making an effort for us to enjoy our food. So how can we waste any of it? At the time, I developed a strong interest in food waste and a new tendency with the younger generations of not appreciating how lucky we are to have such food abundance and taking it for granted. A wasteful attitude, in my opinion, was also stimulated by the producers when they introduced the best before term, which relates to quality of a product, not to its safety. I see so many of my son's generation throwing away food without even checking whether the food is still okay for consumption. I was brought up to check food myself. It probably makes me sound so old. If it smells bad or looks like it has gone off, only then we dispose of it. Estimates show that up to 10% of the 88 million tons of food waste that is generated in the EU every year are somehow linked to date labeling. 53% of consumers don't know the meaning of best before labeling, and 60% of consumers don't know the meaning of use by labeling. Around 88 million tons of food waste are generated annually in the European Union alone, and this is equal to 174 kilograms per person, or 143 billion euros, or 170 million tons of CO2. And latest estimates suggest that around 3,100 million tons of food waste were generated in 2019, out of which 61% came from households, 26% from food service, and only 13% from retail. When I delivered one of my first sermons on food waste in the UK, there were estimated 14 million tons of it. Over the years, it has been reduced to an estimated 9.5 million tons. And it is when 8.4 million people living in the UK are in food poverty. These statistics also shows that the reduction of waste is possible. There is another recent survey which shows how during the pandemic, UK citizens adopted more economic and eco-food management behaviours. However, the latest figures show a slow but steady return to the pre-pandemic food wasting practices, including a huge number of takeaways. As I mentioned before, food waste in the European Union alone causes 170 million tons of CO2. We can add to that plastic, meat and dairy production, pollution, fuel pollution, as well as wasting of water. I hope now you can realize how shocked I was when my interest in the problematic area of food waste led me to the horrible discovery of the way we humans use and abuse our planet, its natural resources, and its habitats. Suddenly, I felt very small and powerless, thinking, what difference can I, an individual and a rabbi, make when the problem is global? The only way to tackle use and abuse of the planet is by changing people's mindsets and habits on an individual, organizational, and governmental level. I was in despair, and then I found EcoSynagogue. Well, EcoSynagogue found me by asking to join the rabbinic steering group of 3 rabbis at the time. Today, I represent liberal Judaism on the EcoSynagogue rabbinic team, and I'm proud to be working with my distinguished colleagues from other denominations. Today, EcoSynagogue spans the whole Jewish community with rabbinic leadership from 5 denominations of Judaism: Orthodox, Sephardi, Masorti, Reform, and Liberal. This is the only initiative in the UK where 5 different denominations of Judaism are working together. It shows how much a large sector of the Jewish community appreciates the magnitude of the climate change problem, and that the only way we can tackle it by doing it together. I always like quoting an EcoSynagogue founder, Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg, who said that sessions on anti-Semitism always get higher attendance than sessions on climate change, though if there is no life on the planet, there won't be anti-Semitism. And I think work of EcoSynagogue has contributed to some extent to raising awareness within the Jewish community of the necessity to address pollution, waste, and abuse of natural resources together. EcoSynagogue's main aim is to help as many communities and their members as possible to live an eco and sustainable life, thus making our contribution as a Jewish community to achieving net zero, and hopefully at some point in the not so distant future. We provide tools and resources to be used by communities in the best way through the environmental audit program on our website, education, support and sharing of best practices, and advocacy. EcoSynagogue is a mainstream Jewish voice in the climate emergency conversation. We are very proud of our environmental audit program. And I would like to say a few more words about it now, as well as to share with you very quickly how it works on our website. I'll just get rid of just here. So this is our main page, EcoSynagogue.org. You can try it. And that's where the audit starts. You just press it here. And this is the registration information. Then there will be 5 different sections of it. But I won't take any more time now. You can check it in your own time. The environmental audit is a free online resource which takes a holistic approach to assessing a community's environmental awareness and implementation, covering management commitment, prayer and teaching, lifestyle, land, building and consumables, local and global engagement. The audit identifies areas where a community can improve and provide resources and support to do so. Once a certain point value has been reached, the community can apply for the relevant award. Almost 50 communities are members of EcoSynagogue at the moment. And at COP26, we were lucky to have a stand. We were very proud to award our first 14 environmental awards. One community, West London Synagogue, achieved our first gold award. And this community's home is a 180-year-old Grade 2 listed building, which shows that being environmentally aware is not restricted to land or modern buildings alone. COP26 was a fantastic experience for us. At COP26 conference, our rabbinic team and our brilliant project manager, Andrea Passer, met leaders of other faiths and were inspired by so many people of other faiths and their work in the area of environment, conservation, and the reduction of pollution. I learned more about climate injustice at COP26 and that there are so many nations that are already suffering from climate change, namely lack of water, droughts, tsunamis, and other natural disasters. Only recently, we learned about the food emergency situation around the Horn of Africa because of the years of droughts. Some might say that this is not a new problem, having droughts and food shortages in Africa. However, more and more areas in the southern states of America are affected by the lack of water in their rivers, annual devastating fires in California and Australia. At the same time, torrential rains in Eastern Europe, in the country like Belarus, where I come from, is an unusual and devastating for the harvest development. At COP26, I learned about many more other places on the planet where a ruthless deforestation causes irreversible changes to the local flora and fauna and throws local people into poverty and hunger. A prime example being in the forest of the National Park Atewa in Ghana. I found COP26 experience to be most positive and most disappointing at the same time. My disappointments with the world leaders, with our governments and global corporations for not being able to commit themselves properly to any serious net zero targets were luckily overshadowed by a fantastic response from the social sector and volunteers and people's understanding and desire to work together to bring necessary change. I learned at COP26 from Bishop Olivia Graham that people of faith constitute no less than 80% of the global population. And that is exactly what I'm talking to you now about. We, people of faith, don't always realize or exercise our power for positive and transformative change. It seems to me that now our time has come to work together through various initiatives like EcoSynagogue, EcoChurch, which inspired EcoSynagogue project, EcoMosque, and other faith eco-initiatives to find ways of working together and making our positive impact on the environment as well. We also need to put more pressure on governments and global corporations to be more focused on sustainability and net zero program in order to preserve a healthy and sustainable life on the planet, and thus preserve our own future as well. Climate crisis is one of the biggest challenges we are facing as humanity today, but it also is one of the biggest opportunities for us to combat it by finding ways of cooperating and working with each other, combating all prejudices, biases, and stereotypes. No faith or denomination of a particular faith can be exempt from the consequences of a big fire in our shared home, planet Earth. We can only stop the fire if we combine our efforts and work together.